Welcome back to Turf Talk, Kentucky Derby Works Edition. Scott Shapiro once again alongside Gary Young. Gary, we had a little bit of activity on the racetrack. We got a couple of the, or all of the Florida contingent in, but before we discuss them, let's discuss the work of Japanese import master fencer.
Nice, easy work with Julian Leperoux up. He's not a particularly imposing looking horse. You know, the work was real slow. I couldn't really put a whole lot of positive nor negative on it. You know, with all respect to the horse, I'm probably going to take a stand against him Saturday.
Yeah, it makes sense. Probably going to have a lot of running to do. I doubt he's going to show speed, right? I mean, you would assume he'd probably, with Leperoux especially on board, it makes sense that he'll probably try to do his best running late.
Yes.
Florida horses, we haven't seen any of them yet. They were on the track today, stretching their legs. Let's start with Maximum Security, a horse that's perfect 4 for 4. Seems like a lot of people are kind of confused, including myself, with what to do with this horse.
Well, if he didn't have the 16 by his maiden win, a lot of people would really be looking at him a lot more seriously. He's a medium-sized horse, well-balanced, galloped sound this morning. His coat looks very good, as all adjacent services horses do. And, you know, he is a real X factor. I mean, he's probably going to be up close to the pace in this race. Pace might not be as hot as some other derbies of recent years, as we've touched on. He's a wild card for sure. That's about the best way I could sum it up.
Yeah, it's interesting. If Todd Pletcher trained this horse and he didn't have the maiden 16K, he might be the favorite in the race, right?
I mean, take away the 16 part, and he's a lot like Justify, you know, with
Right.
one Grade 1 win coming into the race and being 3 for 3. He's a lot like Justify, but you know. We'll see. I mean, he will probably definitely be up close, and that's especially if the track comes up wet. That's obviously going to be where you want to be.
Yeah, and we'll get final thoughts tomorrow, including discussion of how the post-draw impacts that. But let's talk about the two Todd Pletcher horses, Cutting Humor and Spinoff, horses that are not your typical Pletcher buzz horses. They're coming in at big prices. Any thoughts on those today?
They both looked well, as all of Todd's horses do. They gallop sound. They had good energy. Yeah, it's unusual for Todd to have two horses in the race that are both going to be over 20 to 1, but you know, he does know how to win this race.
Yeah, he's done it a couple times. And Cutting Humor's a horse on handicapping that I am interested in. Did have two troubled trips before getting that perfect trip in the Sunland Derby, and comes in with plenty of rest. And good to hear that you think he's doing pretty well. The final horse that came in from Florida that's in the body of the field right now is Vekoma. Obviously, a lot has been made of his crab-like or weird action. George Weaver trained horse. What did you see out of him today?
His gallop was fine. I mean, even when he gallops, he kind of, you know, his left leg is, it's abnormal the way it strides, but obviously he's accomplished a lot with it. He galloped fine. We're gonna see where it's at. George told me that that the winging of the leg is only really noticeable when he makes the lead, and I guess when he makes the lead, he kind of doesn't really shut it down, but his mind might wander a little, and his action might get a little sloppy. But I'm sure George would like that to be a problem on Saturday if he makes the lead at the 8th pole.
Definitely. You've seen quite a few horses. Is there a lot of horses you've seen with similar action to that? I mean, it seems relatively unique.
Yeah, there's been some good horses over the years that don't throw their legs out there perfectly, but have accomplished a lot. If this horse wins the Derby, it'll definitely be the most abnormal moving horse to win the Derby in recent years. But he's obviously accomplished. I mean, he won the Bluegrass in convincing fashion, and it wouldn't become a huge shock if he did win this race.
No, and you know, he'll have to work at a trip or be amongst the pace. He'll definitely be amongst the pace setters early if he's to be successful. One horse on the outside looking in case there's any defections is Bodexpress. Also came in from Florida, ran second at a big price in the Florida Derby when he followed Maximum Security around the track. Any thoughts?
Looked fine. You know, like we've touched on before, the Florida preps this year were two total opposite end of the spectrums. The Fountain of Youth, you could tell early on, was going to probably be a pace meltdown, and that's when Shug's horse ran very well to win the race. The Florida Derby, pretty early on, you could tell it was a complete opposite end, and that the pace was not near as fast, and that the up-close horses were going to have an advantage, and they did there. They did.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that's pretty much. We've covered all 20 horses at least once. 21, I guess, if you count Bodexpress. Yes. We'll be back tomorrow to finalize things. We have the. We'll go final picks for the Derby, get a little thoughts on the Oaks, and hopefully then we'll set ourselves up for making some money over the weekend.
Let's do it.